Emily, can you hear me okay?
Yes, hi Shinzen.
Okay, let us begin. Take a moment to stretch up and settle in. And we'll have free choice on technique in the following sense. Choose either something from the see, hear, feel family, just see, just hear, just feel, or see, hear, feel broad. Or if you're familiar with the noting pleasure, pain, charge, pleasant, unpleasant, mixed, neutral, if you know the pleasure, pain technique, or if you know the open close technique, which is closely related. All of these ultimately have their origin in systematic focus methods from India, the five aggregates, the four foundations, is what's behind the techniques that I just mentioned. But of course, we're doing it in a fully scientific paradigm. So choose one of those six possibilities, whatever appeals to you, for a period of formal practice as we prepare for an interaction with Eddie. If you just joined, we're doing a wide spectrum offering of possible techniques that sort of summarize in a modern science-informed paradigm the essence of early Buddhist mindfulness practice. Choose either one of the 4 techniques from the See, Hear, Feel family, if you're familiar with that, or if you're familiar with open, closed, or pleasure, pain, which works with hedonic charge and therefore affect, emotion, and its influence on perception and behavior. One of those 6 techniques of your choice to get some momentum going into the discussion that we're going to have in just a couple minutes. Okay, good. Now, stay with that technique as a background practice or a micro hit, or if you wish, continue with formal practice as I have an interaction with Eddie. Can you hear me, Eddie?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep. So we've had a number of interesting conversations in the past, and I'm looking forward to the present. How, if at all, can I be of assistance to you?
All right. Well, first, eternal gratitude. Happy to be here with you, Shinzen. And I have two questions. One is more about helping others, and the other one's more about me. Would you like me to say them both now, or do them one at a time?
Yeah, let's hear the whole vector.
All right. I know one of the pillars of practice is supporting others, and I'm getting better at doing this, especially as of late. And I see it does have a positive effect on my practice. So this question's about, do you have any tips for supporting or starting a mindfulness community or keeping one going or getting momentum? And that is the first one.
And that's your outreach, your ministry, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yes. We can definitely talk about that. And what's the other question?
The other question is more about sloth and torpor and procrastination. What to do when it has already arisen, how to prevent it, and like how do I get over that feeling like I should meditate or I should work on some project, but I just don't feel like it, and procrastination basically.
Okay, so two questions based on what I would say is an important complementarity in the, call it what you want, the path of systematic focus training, acquiring and applying focus factors. This complementarity of the work we do on ourselves, for ourselves, with the outreach to be of service to others, and that this is one endeavor. The two sides reinforce each other and are mutually embedded in each other and mutually embrace each other. This understanding, the Tibetans call it Sung Juk, Yuganadha in Sanskrit. It seems to me that you have a good conceptual understanding of how this works based on how you organized your two questions. Would you give a confident yes to my reflection? Yeah. You get it.
At least a baseline understanding, but yes.
So we'll say, welcome to the path of the Bodhisattva, the hero, the Sembachembo, the hero of consciousness. Let's start with yourself. You said it was two things, sloth and torpor on one hand, procrastination on the other. Now, sloth and torpor, these are English words that translate certain ideas from the meditation traditions of India, essentially. And then you said procrastination, and then you gave a couple examples of difficulty following through on things. And then I think at the end you said essentially procrastination. So I think that's the question. Would that be correct? So we've disambiguated that. It's not two questions, it's one question. So we can definitely address that. I will say that if anyone were to search or go to the AI and prompt, put in my name and procrastination and mindfulness behavior change, you'd be able to find everything I had said, which is extensive. Of course, we'll talk about it now. I can give you the top page summary in the next few minutes, but I'll also direct you to a copious web free resources that are now conveniently available. And I'd encourage you to make the search with one of the chats or a couple of them. That's the new way to do things, to put it mildly. So in any event, yes, we can talk about this. But let's start with the helping others. I would be curious what conclusions you've come to so far about this, if any, and how you came to them. Like how far along are you on answering your own question? And you might be at square one of the Turing tape, and I'll start the universal computer for you. That's fine, but you may have sort of moved along the algo a bit. So what have you concluded so far, if anything?
That I need balance with listening and talking, and I know some people, they can just go on, I don't want to say rants, but like emotionally charged vectors, and then I try to like rein them in and bring back some mindfulness, and being able to interrupt someone skillfully, that seems to be a challenge, or maybe I could say challenge. And I guess we could just start there. I mean, there's many intricacies when it comes to this topic and conversations. Talking to more people can be a challenge. So what are your thoughts on that so far?
When you say talking to more people, what does that mean in this context?
Well, it does mean, how does one skillfully reach out with the upaya and talk to more people, and then handle the having more people to talk to?
Aha. So how do you extend your ministry, so to speak, your calling?
Yes.
Would that be another way to say it? Extend the outreach?
Yes.
So one question is about how to deal with the inevitable seemingly endless rambling questions and confusions, right? Which is true. You know that poem by T.S. Eliot about let us go there, you and I, when the evening is spread out across the sky. It's called forgot what it's called, but that'll come to me in a second. But he talks about going down the muttering retreats of conversations, and that these conversations inevitably just lead to an overwhelming question. And then he says, but do not ask, what is it? Let us go and make our visit. So, yeah, the Prufrock's, the love song of Alfred Prufrock is the name of this poem. And of course, it's not a love song, it's a lament on his ability to deal with what happens when his wife goes on these long whatevers. And so he's a great poet, but he can't handle life.
Okay.
So anyway, it just reminds me, yes, people do go on and on sometimes. That is true. So how to skillfully deal with that, and then how to extend your outreach. My first question to anyone that would be asking, how do I teach, would be, what training have you had, formal training, certification, etc., or informal, without a certification? What training have you done so far to be not a practitioner but a teacher?
Well, I've done 10 years of daily meditation practice and studied various systems, Buddhism, and been on like 3 Vipassana retreats, and I'm a certified yoga teacher. I guess those are my certs.
You've done 3, were those Goenka retreats?
Yes.
With body sweeping?
Yes. A few other day retreats, but yeah.
So you have a very solid practice. Is your profession yoga teacher, or is that just another thing you can do?
I recently got certified. I should actually start next week if all goes well.
May I ask what tradition or organization of yoga?
Well, I got 500 credit hours, and I mainly do more like yin yoga, some vinyasa.
Great.
Yeah,
so
I like Ashtanga.
So you are knowledgeable about the spectrum of what yoga can be. How much time do you want to devote to yoga teaching?
As much as I see has a positive impact on my life. So maybe that could be like, 5 hours a week, or it could be 5 hours a day. Yeah. So I do at least an hour a day, like 30 minutes in the morning, 30 at night. I still got to integrate the teaching part more.
And are you in the U.S.? Where do you live?
I live in Georgia. Yeah, the U.S. Atlanta.
Great. Oh, Atlanta. Yeah, big city. Okay. You have a solid 10-year practice involving study and daily practice, and you've done a few retreats. 3 retreats in 10 years, is that correct? How about shorter things like, weekend programs or
Yeah, I've
is
done
your
a few of
retreat
those.
pretty much?
Yeah, like going to visit a monastery for a day or in somebody's house, and it's like whatever 5 hours of meditation.
So it sounds to me like you have the structural elements of a structured practice, a systematic practice in place. You might rev up your retreat practice a bit. I recommended, maybe you're already doing this, but essentially the equivalent of one week retreat per year. But that could be parceled out among half-day retreats or, weekend retreats. But you want to get at least, Goenka-ji says 1 10-day retreat in my style from now on. Well, I don't think it has to be his style, but that would be a minimum kind of thing per year. But, he says it has to be 10 days and all at once. I would say in the modern world, be more flexible. Would you say that the retreat component of your practice is in the ballpark of what I'm describing?
Yeah, the
Or
retreat part maybe I would say needs work. I would like
so
to do
you
more
might,
online retreats. I think it was you guys that did an online retreat, I don't know, 7 months ago or something.
well, we're moving to mostly online because it is vastly superior. Now, of course, you move forward, you lose some charm of the past, but in a world that may be going to hell in a handbasket, I got to go with what works.
Mm-hmm.
So many, not just us, many teachers, COVID is what proved that we could do this. I never would have believed that we could do full on industrial strength retreats, people in their homes with all the triggers and unpredictability of that. If the goal is to have carryover into life, then guess what? A web-based retreat in your house, it's hard work, but it's easy to deliver and scale up. So our retreats now are really international. And now with the new AI, oh my God. So I would encourage you to maybe beef up the retreat component in your practice. But if you do that, I think you have a good solid practice. And if you can maintain that against the vicissitudes of day-to-day whatevers, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, all the way to your death in the future, cannot guarantee, but can say high probability you will not regret having done this. So we're good on that. The answer to my question, have you had training to be a teacher, is actually no. You haven't, which is fine. But that would be my strongest suggestion. And of course, if you like do it with us. We don't have any exclusives, though. You can do it with us and anyone else you want. But find a teacher training program that resonates with you, at least one. And actually, go through it, do the practicum. And I mean, I got to admit, I'm prejudiced towards the people that are teaching the system because it's the one that's most scientific. And if you need, you can always, science always has your back if you're trained in the system. So you're in some other culture, maybe there's a religious orthodoxy, maybe there's a political twinge of authoritarianism, what have you. You can always know anyone that goes to AI or the web, if they've got a beef with you, they've got a beef with science, and they're going to lose.
That's reassuring.
So that's my my motivational. What is it? Marketing. That's my marketing.
Sold it well.
Elevator pitch. So who's got your back? We check it out first. See, in this age, there's a Chinese. I just got back from 2 months in China. China's great, by the way. Very different system from here. Interesting. So I love it. But anyway, they call it communism. Oh, call it what you want. It's just the way they're doing things now. But and it's working. So anyway, there's a Chinese expression everyone in China knows, 胜而后战. It's from the art of war. It was written 2,200 years ago, but it still makes perfect sense in modern colloquial Chinese. It means don't get involved in a fight unless you know for sure you're going to win. How could you do that in the past? Not scientifically. Now you absolutely can check it out with the AI by careful prompting, careful about the syntax of the prompting. It becomes the arbiter of common sense, because science, the power of science is, in the end, the power of common sense. So you have a common sense way of, in the end, if you prompt with a bright prompt, power prompt, I don't know what you might call it. It has you put in the work to ask the question really, really carefully. And you've now got a portal to best human practices that can translate your claims into a common sense argument that essentially no one wants to go up against because they'll seem foolish. But you got to do the work. So the Chinese call it a miao swan. It means you took the abacus into the hall of your ancestors and you did the calculation, the most serious calculation you could possibly do. In those days, more than 2,000 years ago in China, the ancestor hall was the most sacred place. It's the most serious place. All your ancestors are there. And your descendants are also there. You have responsibility to them. Yipes. And it's still true in China. That's, I could show you videos. We were at one of these things. Not exactly. Kids were presented to their ancestors. So win first. Do the sacred algebra. Do the spiritual geometry that you need. Well, in the past, there was no way to do it. There was no spell checker for best human practices. Now there is. Anyone can get it. So I would say go, if you want to be able to walk safely and confidently through all the current cultures and political systems of the world, and navigate the polarizations that may exist in your own culture. Learn a science-based approach to this stuff. And is one example of that. There are others. So I would say get some training. Would be my strongest general encouragement. Now, this may go to the procrastination piece you mentioned. I'm not sure if you're going to procrastinate on this or not.
I feel quite inspired.
Got any ideas?
So. Probably not. That's another thing I realize that helps with procrastination and sloth and torpor is right understanding, like why should I do this? When I got the why down, it kind of helps me. So this solidifies the why should I do it. So I'll probably have less struggle procrastinating here.
Great. We can, of course, talk. Well, as I mentioned, I have talked a lot about procrastination specifically because I had a lot of trouble with it myself. So I have some confidence. I could tell you the tips I learned about procrastination. Would take a few minutes. We can go there. Otherwise, we can talk about how to skillfully interrupt people. I'm learning myself. Or we can talk about extending your outreach. Also, on my checklist, there's one other thing. Because you do yoga and you teach yoga, there's the whole conversation of how the practice of yoga and the teaching of yoga does double duty as the practice of mindfulness and the teaching of mindfulness. So there's the whole yoga connection. I can see 4 directions to go from here, and you may want one of those, or you may have your own direction. We will have limited time, but we can schedule as many other sessions as we need until all the questions get answered. I'll throw the ball over to you. Which game would you like to play?
I guess we could do the outreach optimization and the elocutionary skill part.
That, of course, goes to training. How are you at public speaking?
I'm getting better. I'm pretty good, actually.
Great. So you don't have the block that a lot of people do. I used to teach ministers in a seminary. I wouldn't exactly call them Protestant ministers, but they function like that. The religion was called religious science, science of mind, Ernest Holmes. New thought, that means new a century ago. It was new. But anyway, one thing I learned about seminaries, places where ministers get trained in general, is that they, at least in those days in the U.S., would outsource the public speaking to the what's that organization called that does that kind of training? Emily, help me here.
Toastmasters.
Toastmasters. Toastmasters had a program where they take anyone. I don't care how riddled you are with emotions and imposter syndrome, and they will train you to be an effective public speaker. And ministers have to deliver that sermon on Friday or Saturday or Sunday, depending on what the religion is. But we've been developing something called word power, and we can send you resources on that, and we can do sessions specifically on that.
That'd be great.
So that's maybe we can, for now, check off that box. I will maybe just say one more thing. Well, actually, yeah, let's check off that box, and let's talk about how you skillfully interrupt people. As I mentioned, I'm just learning how to do this myself, but I tend to be able to teach things as I'm learning them. So one thing that helps me is when people are rambling. On the surface, they don't have a formulated question, apparently. So if you were to just analyze the syntax on the surface, there's never an actual question. I mean, you're wondering, how long will it be for a single sentence or several sentence grammatical question to arise from this pilgrimage, which seems to be all over the map. So from a surface analysis, it's very frustrating because it's like, when are they going to actually ask one or more questions? But there's a deeper game. There's another way to listen. There's a deeper listening where you're listening for a collection of questions that they may not know how yet to put into words. But you've trained yourself to hear the questions behind the rambling. And then after they're done rambling, you go down the list. Is this a question or not? And your questions are perfectly well formed, logically, syntactically, semantically. in terms of emotional sentiment, you name it. And you confirm what their set of questions is, and now you've got to deal with the set of questions. But if you're well prepared, it's just marching orders. You know exactly what to do. But it takes a while, first of all, to develop that skill. We're going to train the bots to do that. It's going to help a lot of people. But that's another story. Now we're talking about training humans to do it, because it's a human bot world that we're going to live in this century. So we're training the humans to do this job as human teachers. And then it's just a numbers game. You have to not answer one question, but a system of questions. But if you know the underlying system, you can deduce in actually a fairly algorithmic way an optimal response to that set of questions. Does that make sense, Eddie?
Yeah. It's a good system.
It is a mathematically correct system, or at least it will be before I die if I have any say in it. First one ever. It's not about who says it anymore. It's about best practices.
What do you mean?
Well, that gets us into another conversation. Are we good on your questions at this point?
Yeah.
Well, just briefly, I am 90% confident at this point that there is an optimal way to organize interactions with the new multimedia AI. Call it what you want, large models. But I don't think that large and big compute are necessarily the next big thing in AI. I have a different idea. And when I say actually, I should say we, me, Jay Sanguinetti, and Judd Brewer have a different idea about how the AI is going to transform professional science and how it's going to transform daily life interactions for all humans. And if I wanted to be melodramatic, I would say as much commotion as there has been around the new AI, hello world, you ain't seen nothing yet. Wait till you see the part that doesn't depend on compute and big. The part that depends entirely on mathematical depth. Wait till you see what the AI is like once you learn the grammar, the whole fucking world is back in grammar school, except we have to figure out the grammar, and there's some new math that I think pretty much nails it. It's called applied category theory if you're interested. And how that relates to the new AI is providential. Or seemingly, in other words, there's an alignment. Once you see what this math does, and you see what the AI does, and you see what the math says about the AI, you put it together and you realize, oh my God, our whole species is back in grammar school. But this looks like grammar school for the gods. This is Hogwarts. It's a cinematic sci-fi fantasy that's real somehow. Because every scientist that me, Jay, and Judd knows now has a senior researcher in their lab, and it's this AI. It's smarter than all of us put together. But it needs us to do anything because it's just a tool. It's not smart at all. It's just a bunch of gears and relays in the end. It's a tool. But in the hands of a human that actually understands this, that can wear it the way Wiley Post, the pilot, could wear an airplane when people were just learning about airplanes and it was really, really dangerous to fly one. We're in the Wiley Post era. So it's actually dangerous to fly this shit. But it won't be once we learn the rules. And, oh my God. So that's what I was referring to. That's a whole other conversation that keeps me up all night with a big smile on my face, figuring out how to actually do this.
And do you post your conversations with AI anywhere?
I'll send you a few. What
Okay.
would you be interested in?
Yeah, the category theory one and how it relates to science and the modernization of it.
Okay.
That seems very interesting.
Okay. So you're set up.
I'm ready.
What AIs do you typically use at this point?
I guess like 50% of the time, Chat GPT, and then the other like Gemini and Grok.
Grok. I've heard of it, but I don't know anything about it. Tell me about it.
Yeah, I just started using that last week or a few weeks ago. It's pretty interesting. It's
in what way?
It's Elon Musk's model.
That is so funny. I'm sorry. It's just very humorous. I'm not going to say why I laughed. Yes, please continue.
Okay, you can tell me why. I'm sending it to
I'll tell you why
in
private. Yeah.
Okay, that's funny. But yeah, that's interesting because like you have to so far get on Twitter to use it. So it's interesting how they marketed it. Or, I mean, they call it X now.
They call it X?
Yeah.
Oh, it's not called Grok anymore?
No, Twitter's called X. And to my knowledge, I have to get on X to use Grok. So.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Wait till you see any of these. Even Elon's, whatever the fuck, are going to be useful, really useful. because you can get the bots to talk to the bots. You've got 3 different views of the world, but they all follow the same math. There's no way they don't follow this. They're equivalent systems mathematically. If they were not equivalent systems, they would not be functioning AI. So, but they will behave quite differently, perhaps even dramatically differently. But you can get a consensus from the bots. And then you can submit to the discipline of their consensus. And then you'll pretty much have the sword that can break any shield and the shield that can defend against any sword are now yours. And you may be 16 years old in Kinshasa in the Democratic Republic of the Congo and mostly be speaking Swahili. Makes no difference, and there was no charge. It was a QR code. Someone had a cell phone. It's just a prompt. You can read it in Swahili. You'll know what it said. That's what I think the future is going to be. Now how is that going to change public discourse? There's a new sheriff in town. And his name is not Elon. I will tell you, his name is not Elon. Whatever you may think about U.S. politics, I promise you, the name of the new sheriff is applied category theory.
Didn't Buddha use applied category theory?
Say what?
Buddha, didn't he use applied category theory?
Category theory is the math of mysticism.
Yeah.
Pure and simple.
Okay.
It's the math of connection. And connection is pretty central to the world's mystical traditions. It's our math. But it's also the math that we think will be behind the new way to do science. Yeah, me, Judd, and Jay are that confident. We're going to say, hey, you know what? All you other scientists everywhere in the fucking world, hey, you know, there's a new way to do this, and it's not that hard, but we'll show you. That's what we're saying. And the way we're going to show them is by sending them a prompt that shows them. It animates. It's something written in English or Chinese or Arabic or Russian. Means the same thing in all languages. But you can read it as a human. You know what you're giving to your bot. You can always take it out of the prompt buffer. That's what we put that between our warring parties of the world. And anyone can do it. Anyone can craft something like this. And if they're right, they're right. And it may be that kid in Kinshasa that did it. And he did it, or she, in Swahili, but it doesn't matter because it's now in the 24 languages that the bots are fluent in. This is the world to come unless there's some black swan, white swan, unexpected, whatever that's good or bad. If we limp along in this petty pace for another 20 or 30 years, we won't limp along. Limp along means manage not to do ourselves in or set ourselves way, way back. If we don't do that, then what I'm now describing is highly probably a rather optimistic view of the future of this planet. Sober optimism, both the sobriety and the optimism supplied by best human practices, the mystic, professional mystic, and the professional science educator become one thing. So, you asked and I told. Are we good, Eddie?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, well, I am satisfied. You are satisfied. I think listeners are satisfied. So let's go back to formal practice. Stretch up, settle in. One of 6 techniques, 4 from the See, Hear, Feel family, 2 from the pleasure, pain, open, closed family. Let's explore in a formal way now. Okay, good. Now, life practice, the algorithm, analyze the day to come, strategize how you'll practice, implement with enthusiasm, and at the end of the day, assess. What was learned? What questions remain? Prepare for the night. Some of you may know how to meditate throughout the night. But the next day, we begin by reading the book of Our Own Reality, a new chapter. Analyze, strategize, implement, assess is the daily practice, interspersed with periodic intensives, workshops, retreats, and maintained for the lifetime. Or if dropped, picked up when need be. It's always available. Eddie, I'd like to give you the final word for today, if there's something you'd like to say.
Yeah, thanks for this, Shinzen, and I look forward to our conversations in private. As for outreach, if anybody wants live guided meditations or mindfulness talks, they can check out the Give Good Energy server on Discord. There's poetry and resources and friends you can make there. I'll give it to Emily after this call, and I'll start doing Zoom and Skype. So I'll end this with a very short poem that I wrote inspired by the Heart Sutra. All things by nature are void, neither born nor destroyed. Consciousness is this, the solid and the split, feeling, form, and choice, all in the mix.
Emily, if you would bring us together, we will come apart. Bye-bye, everyone. Have a great day.
You.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shinzen.
Many thanks. Take care.
Emily.
Thank you.